Welcome to the Waymaker podcast studio. Excited about having my next guest, but I'm not really sure why. He is a man of Alpha Phi Alpha who comes in here resplendent in Kappa colors. Jay Hines, good morning, man. Welcome to the podcast.
Good morning, brother. You know, I specifically wore this suit just for you.
Yes, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I appreciate that. Nothing but respect. That's all I can do.
Right.
But, you know, there are a lot of people who can wear our colors well who just frustrated because they didn't make it in.
Well, you know,
but it's okay.
We like to just view it as showing you how to do it right. You know, so.
I'm giving you nothing but kudos. I'm walking around. I will up my game next time we get together.
I appreciate it, brother.
But, actually, I have a feeling that you look like this, not in these colors, but you look pretty good all the time. So talk about what it is, who you are, and what it is that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially, my name is Joseph Hines, and my main thing is I help high performers grow their style in the network. So on the style side, I've been in the menswear space for over a decade, and I have a private clothing company called Affluent, where essentially I help high performers better communicate who they are in the spaces that they operate in. And on the networking side, I have a business for high-performing men and a community I started with my business partner Hafiz called The Standard as well, where essentially we help other high performers connect with each other, grow with each other, and we do events all across the world. So those are kind of the two sides of what I do, and clothing happens to be a bridge that really connects both really well.
So again, I'm not sure you help high performers help with their brand. I don't know why we're just meeting, given this should have been the other way. I should be sitting here resplendent in the suit, and you should be sitting otherwise. But how did you get into doing this?
Yeah, man. So it's a very interesting story. So I was not the clothing guy. Clothing was actually the last thing that I was going to do. I was the basketball guy. If you would have asked anybody when I was, 14, 15, 16-year-old, if you let me tell it, I was going to be the next Kobe Bryant, right? I was the guy who was going to go in the gym, shoot 1,000 shots. Matter of fact, not even shoot 1,000 shots. I was trying to make 1,000 shots. And around 16, 17, my junior year going into my senior year, I essentially broke my arm twice in the same year, about 3 months apart from each other. Both times were a double fracture. And the second time that I broke it, I'll never forget, this was around late May, June, school had ended. And the second time I broke it, my bone actually came out of my arm. And I remember all of my teammates literally running out the gym and me walking to the nurse's office by myself with like my arm in a Z. And it was the first time in my life that I had ever thought about the ball stop bouncing, right? Because at that point, I loved basketball. That's all I could see. To make matters worse, I ended up getting surgery on my arm. I wake up from surgery, and I tell the doctor, like, hey, I don't have any feeling in my left hand. Doctor lets me know, man, you have nerve damage. And if anyone's ever experienced nerve damage, the thing about it is you never know when it's going to come back. So I ended up going into my senior season, right, which should have been a great off season for me, where I was going to go to all these D1 camps, right, all these, AU tournaments I wasn't able to do because, I was rehabbing. So I played my whole senior season essentially with one hand, right, because I didn't want to tell coach I had nerve damage, because if I broke it again, my mom was going to kill him. So essentially, end of the year comes, and I remember going in the gym one day to do my usual routine of practicing, and I picked up the ball, and it was the first time that basketball ever felt like work to me. Weirdest feeling ever. So I'm in this weird place where I'm trying to figure out, man, like, what do I want to do next? I'm lost. I have my whole identity in this sport called basketball, and I happened to go to a college visit to a place called Georgia Southern University. And while I'm at this college visit, this guy by the name of Adam Hazlett, he comes up to me and he says, hey, Joe, look, man, we're having this program called Pathways to Success. It's for incoming African males. We only select 30 for this incoming freshman class. Would you be interested in applying? Again, I wasn't the guy who was on student government. I wasn't doing mock trial. Like, I strictly was basketball, but I had all this extra energy. I didn't know kind of where to place it, right? Because I was always very focused. And I said, you know what, whatever, I'll apply. About 3 weeks later, I get an email back saying I've been accepted. And essentially what they did is about a week before school started, they had us all come to campus early. Now, when they had us come to campus early, they started pairing us with mentors. And our mentors at that time were guys who were either getting their doctoral degree, their master's degree, or was like their fourth year on campus. So these are people who were very senior on campus. These are guys who were SGA presidents, had their own student org. And when they started pairing me with these mentors, it was the first time in my life I ever saw men that looked like me that were choosing to dress up, like actively. Right? It wasn't like they were in trouble. It wasn't like, they had to go to church. They were just actively dressing up on campus. And there was one moment in particular that really shifted my life. We were sitting on our dining commons called Landrum at that time, and about 10 or 12 of them all walked in at one time, and it was like time stopped. Right? Like the lunch lady stopped serving chicken, the girls stopped talking at the table, And in that moment, I became fascinated about what caused this shift in the room just based on what they were wearing. That was freshman year, and I've been doing clothing ever since.
So did you start wearing ties to class every day?
Well, yeah, man. So it was interesting. So the first progression of it, right, is I'm asking my mentors, like, man, how should I go about changing my style? Like, what should I wear? So it started kind of with me wearing slacks, and upgraded into me wearing suits. At the time, they weren't really good, and then it transformed into me actually seeking out a mentor. So around my sophomore year, I went to a luxury retailer, which I would end up working at, and literally there was one black guy that worked in there. I went up to him, got to be 19 at this time, and I said, hey man, look, I'm looking to get into this space. Would you mind mentoring me? Right? And he said yes. And from there, man, it really became a thing. In my junior year, I actually ended up working at this luxury retailer. So at that point, man, I'm wearing everything to class: suits, sports coats. Like it became kind of a running joke. But yeah, man, college for me really became a training ground of kind of testing my style and also understanding the importance of context and clothing. Right? Because there is something to be said where, if you're going to a house party, you probably don't want to wear a full suit. So I had to figure out, man, how could I still be dressed up, right? But without coming across as pretentious or too uptight. So I started learning all these little subtleties on how to dress for the occasion, really in college.
And that's what you help to teach people now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So 2 things. 1, I'm glad you didn't waste this height. You did try to play basketball. Otherwise, I would really be upset.
Yeah. Right, there we go. I love it.
I was just challenged by verticality. So it kept me here. You moved fast through a phase, though, of your life, and I want you to go back into that a little bit more, because to suffer the kind of injuries that you did, and I'm sure, I already know that you were a baller. I could tell when you walk down the corridor, but talk about what it was like in that dark space when you figured you could not play basketball anymore. You had to move to something else. Talk about what that was.
Yeah, I think it was very depressing, and a lot of guys I know go through this because the worst thing as a man is to not have purpose. And what I liken it to, it's almost like being in the ocean, and the ocean's just carrying you because you don't have a direction. You're looking on all sides and you don't see land. And the worst thing you could do is to not swim in a direction. But a lot of times when you don't know what you want to do, the fear keeps you from swimming any direction because you're like, man, I just don't know where I want to go. And what I found to be the most useful at that point is 2 things. Number 1, having the courage to continue to ask myself, what? And what I mean by what is like, what is it that I want to do? So a lot of guys, when they get to this point, the fear of not knowing the answer to that keeps them from asking, and they tend to get into other things to kind of, stave off that answer or that question. Right, because they don't want to deal with it. So the fear keeps them farther and farther away from finding out the next thing. But if you can continue to ask yourself every single day, man, what is it, that I want to do? Seek and you shall find. So I think that's the first. Really, really important part to it. And then I think the second thing is just getting an understanding that, when it comes to your purpose, when it comes to your skill sets and the things that you can do, not attaching it to a particular vehicle, but understand the essence of what your actual gift is. And here's what I mean by that. When people think of Michael Jordan, right? Michael Jordan's gift wasn't basketball, right? Basketball was just the vehicle that housed his gift. Michael Jordan's actual gift was his competitive nature. That's why when he transitioned from basketball, right, he went into business. Because if you think about it, if it was 1000 BC, Michael Jordan's not playing basketball. So what's his gift? So for me, what I had to do is extract what my gift was from this vehicle that I thought was the gift. And then once I did that, it opened me up to a whole new world of different ways that I can deploy it. And for me, I realized, my gift is communication, and there's multiple ways I can deploy that, i.e. clothing, marketing, right? Communicating with men, speaking. Like there's so many ways that I can deploy that gift. And now I'm not stuck to one particular vehicle, which gives you so much more freedom, because a lot of people get depressed because they're thinking it's only that one vehicle. And for me, once I realized that, man, changed the game for me.
I'm not going to... I've never had a chance to ask Michael what he thought his gift was. But I think it's interesting that you put it in the context that you did, his competitive nature. Because we think about his Hall of Fame speech, and he really talked about all the times. People took it many ways, but he talked about the times when he had been slighted. Now he had to overcome all of those things and overcame them with abandon.
Yeah.
So he goes back. You always hear about the guy who beat him out for the spot.
He still remembers. Brought him to the speech, which is savage. That's a whole nother level of savagery. I'm like, golly.
But he takes it there because he is competitive. And it is figure out what that gift was that he's doing. So when you put it into that context, it really makes it interesting and really puts a lot of other things in perspective. You've shared some things with us that have really been challenging in your life and bringing you to where you are. Mm-hmm. The summit is about uncomfortability and how we grow from a place of uncomfortability. Mm-hmm. You've talked about a few things, but when you think about it in that context, talk about a situation where you've been uncomfortable and how you've had to grow.
Lots. I think the first thing is what I shared, just even that transition from basketball to figuring out what I wanted to do, like that was uncomfortable. You figure you put 16 or 17 years of your identity into one thing, and now you're having to kind of face the music that not only do you not have a passion for this thing, but now you don't even know what that next thing is. So what do? You either grow or you die, right? So, so if you cling to what you knew, right, you'll stay stuck. Now, I could have been the guy like still, try to play ball and still try to force it or make it work, even though I didn't have that passion. But I knew that in order to grow into the next phase of my life, I had to grow out of that, and I had to allow that part of my life to stay where it was, and I had to become someone new. And becoming someone new is uncomfortable because it's uncharted territory. And anytime you're going into uncharted territory, there is a level of fear because you haven't been there before, right? And as humans, our brain's always going to want us to stay safe. Like that's a natural thing. So for me, it was just just waking up every day with the fear of not knowing what I wanted to do and still having to ask myself why. Because I think the scariest thing, especially for me, for basketball, and it's the gift and the curse, is basketball never felt like work. Even the workouts, I loved it. I love looking next to the guy next to me and seeing him quit. Right? I love that. Every part of it was fun. The bad side to that is I didn't know how to do anything I didn't love. Right? So that was the thing that made me afraid, because I'm like, man, am I ever going to find something that I can wake up every day and it doesn't feel like work? And there's also another side of it where as a guy, there is a level where you have to get yourself comfortable to doing things that you don't like to do in order to grow, right? Because you're not always going to like everything about the process. But for me, because I came from this, it was literally a game that was so fun, none of that process felt like work for me. So it was even having to unlearn that, like those habits of, hey, Joe, look, there are going to be some things that are uncomfortable, that aren't always going to be fun. But sometimes they're to your benefit to learn how to do, because you're teaching yourself how to go through opposition and to go through adversity. And to me, that was just like, it was so uncomfortable. And again, it was a dark time. Very, very, a little bit very fearful, but I continue to walk forward, and that's the most important thing. You just gotta keep walking.
You've talked about a few people who've come into your life that have helped you through. Here we call them Waymakers. Mm-hmm. They may otherwise be called mentors. Yeah. But talk about the importance of that and the importance of those relationships.
Yeah, I think, and this is even part of the reason why, I started my second business, The Standard, where we help other high performers, right, and kind of get in this community, because I realize as men, a lot of times we feel like, we need to be a lone wolf, right? But the reality is what's more powerful is not the lone wolf, it's the wolf in a pack, right? Like I just left Yellowstone not too long ago. We actually went there for my community, and it was amazing because we had this park ranger who was kind of telling us all about the park, and he's showing us these bison that are like 8 feet tall, right? And then we're seeing the brown grizzly bear, and then we're seeing these elks and these it was crazy, these huge animals. So I started saying to him, I'm like, man, like who is the apex predator? Like it has to be the brown grizzly bear, right? Because all these other animals are so big. Like who's killing these animals, right? And he says to me, he says, actually, it's not the grizzly bear. I was like, what? What do you mean? It's huge. What do you mean it's not the grizzly bear? He was like, it's actually the wolves. And the reason the wolves are the apex predator is because they travel in packs. And I think for men, it's the same thing. You have to be able to travel in packs and surround yourself with mentors and people that are either doing more than you or motivating you to do more to really get to that next level and to reach your full potential. And for me, I can go down a list of people. Number one, I would definitely say Kobe Bryant, even though I never met him in person, right? What I tell people is if you can't meet him, in person physically, you still can meet him digitally. Right. So you have YouTube, you have books, so that can still be a mentor. The second is, of course, my mentors that I actually had in college. Right. Like, Garrett Green, Jody Beckford, Adam Hazlip, John Wosu, Darius Robinson. There's a lot of people. Right. The list goes on and on of men who, were 4, 5, 6, 7 years my senior, where I don't know what I would have done freshman year of college, completely removed from my hometown without that guidance, man. They gave me so much game that really shaped my development as a man. Even a guy like a Jay Gatz, who kind of brought me into the menswear space. I mean, there's so many men, Donald Knight, C-suite executive at Greenhouse, helped me so much in business. Tim Mercer, entrepreneur, built an Inc. 500 company called iBox. Like these men, who were ahead of me and who are my senior, who really mentored and shaped me to become the man that I am today, were so instrumental. And I couldn't imagine being here without that.
Love the conversation about the wolf, because as you know, the strength of the pack is the wolf, and the strength of the wolf is the pack. And so the fact that they're able to be the dominant ones in that culture really makes it work. Jay Hines, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for sharing all this. Tell the people how to reach you, because I will tell you this. I've met a lot of alpha brothers along the way, and you are the coolest one. And so they need to know how to get this style, and I need to know how to get that.
Yeah, absolutely. I got you. So, guys, you can reach me on Instagram at mr.mr.jhines, Jhines. Looking forward to working with you. Again, if you're interested on the style side, reach out to me. And then if you're interested on the community side, you can follow the Affluent Standard. So appreciate your time, and I got you on the suit, man. We'll make it work.
I appreciate you, man. Thanks for joining us here on the podcast.
Thank you, brother.
Appreciate you.